Hello and welcome to ESPN FC Live. My name is Mark Donaldson, back for a new domestic season, just less than a week after the World Cup finished. Alongside the wonderful Shaka Hislop, Sam Tighe, and from Chicago, Beth Lindop. Today, we're talking Liverpool. Under new management, Andoni Iraola will be in charge for the new season after a disappointing campaign last year on the back of them winning the title. So with all that said and done, Shaka Hislop, how on earth are we meant to know what to expect from Liverpool in their first season under Iraola?
Yeah, let's take the last two seasons and try to figure that out, shall we? Listen, right now, I think both Arsenal and Manchester City will be better than Liverpool this season. I think the expectation for Liverpool, kind of given their spending of last summer, we see what's to come between now and the start of the season. But they've got to finish third. And I know we're talking about a team that finished last season, but that was a desperate underperformance. So I'm thinking third. Liverpool finished 11 points behind Manchester United last season, who finished third themselves. They've got to eclipse that, surely.
Okay, Beth. 2 seasons ago, Liverpool were third favourites to win the title. They won the title. Last season, Arsenal were third favourites to win the title. They won the title. This season, Liverpool are third favourites again to win the title. Given what Shaka's just said, how much of a surprise would it be if everything gels, Iraola goes on to win the title in his first season with Liverpool as third favourites?
Well, I mean, that's music to my ears. I had no idea about that stat. So that's giving me more confidence. I think it would be a surprise. I completely agree with Shaka. I think Arsenal and Manchester City are the clear favourites. Arsenal probably more so than City, based on the fact that they're champions and that they've had less change this summer, obviously, in terms of the manager and the squad probably as well. So yeah, I would be very surprised if Andoni Iraola is able to guide Liverpool to the title in his first season. However, I was very surprised that Arne Slot managed to do it, having made just one signing in Federico Chiesa when he took over. So it is possible. I think the one thing I would say is it does feel like the Premier League has shifted away the last couple of years from needing 100 points to guarantee yourself a title. Obviously Arsenal won it with, was it 84, 85 points? Liverpool a couple less than that 2 years ago. So I think that's actually a better place to be in terms of for the neutral, just having that openness, I guess, and the more, that there's margin for error in a way that there wasn't when Manchester City and Liverpool were sort of neck and neck a couple of years ago. So I will be surprised. I think there's an awful lot to do. We'll get on, I think, later on to Sam's predicted 11 for the new season. But I think this squad is, despite spending an awful lot of money last summer, needs major surgery. I think that they've obviously had a number of big departures, Mo Salah chief among them. So they need more players. Andoni Iraola has admitted that this week. He said they need to sign a winger. But I would argue they probably need another 4 or 5 players, really, to bolster up this squad. And time's are ticking. So I'll be surprised if they go into the season with a squad that looks ready to go on and win the title.
The former New York City FC player, as a manager, Sam, has managed very well, but not managed huge clubs. AEK Larnaca, Mirandés, Rayo Vallecano, where he did well, attracted the attention of Bournemouth, where he did very well to attract the attention of Liverpool. Is this a gamble, this appointment?
I wouldn't call it a gamble because I believe in Iraola, the manager. I think he's brilliant. However, it's by no means a certain thing because we are stepping into unknown territory when it comes to Iraola, at least at the top level. So we take his last 2 jobs as manager, Rayo Vallecano, Bournemouth. Both teams that you could say are underdogs, both teams that you could comfortably predict would have less than 50% of the ball. And that would mean that he was allowed to set up a reactive game plan, press high energy, turn over the ball high up and turn that into shots. And he was able to coach plucky football. He was very effective. He did an amazing job at it. However, at least in the early portion of his Bournemouth career, they had trouble holding on to leads because once they went 1-0 up, they didn't necessarily know how to manage the game from there. And that did get better through the course of his Bournemouth career, so that's a positive. But stepping into, well, the dugout at Anfield is a whole different kettle of fish here. And you're going to be looking at a team who's expected to win, expected to dominate, expected to have most of the ball. It's going to ask Iraola different questions as a coach and as a tactician. So this is a massive opportunity for him to grow. It's a massive opportunity for Liverpool to get in at the ground level on what could be a very special manager. I'm a big fan of his, but there's lots of unknowns that we're going to be taking a look at here. And I'm excited to see how he deals with those and how he adapts his philosophy to basically cater for a very new situation that he finds himself in.
As far as his managerial career is concerned, he's been with unfashionable sides, and he's not so much made them fashionable, but he's made them pretty successful, especially at Rio and at Bournemouth. Why don't we hear from the man himself in his first official press conference following his unveiling in the United States? He spoke with the assembled media, including Beth, and here's a little snippet of what he had to say.
It's difficult to say a number when the market is open, and you have to be always open to new options to improve the squad. And there are obvious situations that we know that we need to sign players, where winger, for example, no, we definitely need to sign a winger. But there are other situations that we will have to analyze what the market gives you, what's the cost, how we also see the players we have. We have some, I said the other day, no, some tricky positions where we have like injured players that we trust, but still not the ideal situation.
Talking there about how many players he might need, but Sam, given the way the transfer market is right now and the money seems to have gone crazy, he spoke about a winger to replace Mohamed Salah. I want to bring up your graphic and a projected 11 for the first game of the season at Newcastle. Now, there's new players in there. The centre-back, Jeremy Jacquet, alongside Van Dijk. Konate's gone. Kerkez is an interesting one because he played for Iraola at Bournemouth. Frimpong, hopefully you get a full season from him without injury. You've gone for Engamoa right now, but bearing in mind this is only game week 1 and there's no Cody Gakpo. What's the thinking behind this selection?
Yeah, let's explain it before everybody faints. Liverpool are in a tricky situation, I think, for the opening game week. Part of that is injury related, and part of that is World Cup related. Now, we know that Virgil van Dijk, Cody Gakpo and Alisson are not joining the US tour. Beth, correct me if I'm wrong there, but it's those three that are not joining the US tour, and they're going to be linking up with the squad when they get back. So they're going to be behind in terms of games. Cody Gakpo for personal reasons, of course, and Virgil for the incredible amount of minutes that he has played over the last decade. He needs a bit of a rest. So they're already potentially going to be down a couple of players, though, or at least those players are going to be short. Then Giovanni Leone is not back ready yet. Wataru Endo is a massive question mark. We're not expecting to see Mohamed Salah play in the Liverpool shirt again. It creates short-term problems. And so I've done my best to fill the holes there. I'm not convinced by the 11 that I just put forward. You won't be either. And I don't want to see Rio and Gamora on the right wing long term. I think we all know that he's going to be a great player cutting in off the left-hand side. But the choice right now for Andoni Iraola is Rio or Harvey Elliott if he has an amazing preseason, or Federico Chiesa, who I don't even know if he's going to be there by the time the season rolls round. And that's, of course, because Victor Munoz is going to be on an extended break and behind in terms of fitness because he went all the way in the World Cup. That's why Alexis McAllister isn't there as well. Yeah, there are a lot of problems to solve here, long term, but also with regard to the very first game that Iraola has to take charge of. And there are things here that are working against him.
How many players does he need, Shaq?
Well, judging by that graphic, quite a lot. I'll be honest. I'm with Sam on this. I don't see Rio being long term on the right hand side. The challenge of that is you're trying to find a player to fill the void left by Mo Salah, who is well, he is a winger, but a goal scoring winger like nobody's seen in this game before, certainly in a Liverpool shirt. Who do you find to fill that void? And I feel as a result, there's going to have to be a massive adjustment to how Liverpool play the game, simply because you can't count on Mo Salah as a winger and 30 to 40 goals a season or whatever it is he got regularly. That leaves one big ask. I'm hoping that we see the best of Jeremy Frimpong. As you mentioned, Mark, injury-laden season last time around, but for Leverkusen, outstanding on that right-hand side as an overlapping and attacking right wing back, more along the lines of a Trent Alexander-Arnold than a traditional right wing back. But we need to see him play consistently. You need to see Florian Wirtz be consistent. You need Alexander Isak to look anything like why Liverpool bought him in the first place, or that we saw of him in a Newcastle shirt. You get those performances, then all of a sudden things don't look as bad as maybe you think right now. The trouble is, you put that up against those same players and their performances of last season, and you're left wondering where does Iraola take?
Beth, you sat down with Andoni Iraola. You were also at the introductory press conference. What have you learned so far that you maybe didn't know before from the things that he said?
Yeah, well, I think to be honest, and I sort of led my piece on this, that the most insightful thing for me was the one question, because we were lucky enough, a few of us, to sit down with him for about 45 minutes, which, you very rarely get that amount of sort of uninterrupted time with a Premier League coach, just because they're so busy when the season gets underway. But he answered pretty much every question. He was super personable, really warm. But the one question he didn't want to answer was about a letter that he sent to Liverpool when he was a player at Athletic Club in Bilbao, and Liverpool tried to sign him. I think it was back in 2013. He didn't have very long left on his contract, but ultimately he decided to renew his contract at Athletic Club. But he sent a letter to Liverpool explaining his decisions, and by all accounts it was very gracious, very humble, self-deprecating letter that had a pretty profound impact on people at Anfield. I think it marked him out as someone who was just a really classy guy, essentially, to do that. So he was asked a little bit about that, and he just sort of paused and laughed, and he said, it's a great story. He said, but I think I want to hold that back for now. And he was super polite, and everyone was like, yeah, no, that's fine. And someone asked, why is it that you don't want to speak about that just now? And he said, I don't want to look like I'm trying to sell myself to supporters. And I thought that was really interesting, because ultimately that is the business. Half of the business is sort of trying to sell yourself. But I think the overarching theme from the time we had with him was that for him it's very much about the collective. He spoke about Spanish football and why so many Spanish coaches are doing so well, and he said so often it is about putting the team before yourself. He spoke about when he first came to Bournemouth, the whole sort of concept of going over and clapping supporters at the end of the game was quite alien to him, because in Spain it tends to just be the players that do that. And he said at one point, the coaches should be the assistants to the players. The players are the ones that take centre stage. Now, obviously at Liverpool, a lot of clubs, but at Liverpool, I think in particular in the Premier League, the manager is, they're put on a pedestal. They are the be all and end all. Jurgen Klopp obviously had this real sort of cult of personality. So I think it might maybe be a little bit of an adjustment to get used to the scrutiny that comes with being a Liverpool boss. But he also came across as a very affable, understated, quite relaxed guy. Didn't seem overly phased by anything. And as Sam said earlier on, his record speaks for itself in terms of his ability to be able to implement, some really exciting football at his previous clubs. And he acknowledged himself, it doesn't matter what he says, he can say the best things in the world in his interviews and his press conferences. If results aren't successful, then ultimately he's not going to be in a job. And I think he obviously understands that. So he came across really well. I think really encouraging from a Liverpool perspective. He strikes me as someone who you could see being successful at Liverpool, but he does have his work cut out for him because they do need a good few more players.
Yeah, you referenced an article that you've written, an excellent article, and part of that also says that 12 months ago he was down the block in Chicago with Bournemouth for pre-season. So it's Shaq, it's been a natural kind of progression for him. But I want you to try and compare and contrast, if you wouldn't mind. Back in the days when you were named Player of the Year at Reading, you got your move to Newcastle. So you're at a big club, then you go to a huge club. The transition between that for Iraola, going from a big club in Bournemouth to a huge club in Liverpool, what will that be like for him?
Well, first, at smaller clubs, you're allowed to kind of learn the job as it is. And as you mentioned, Mark, in my case, it was as a player. For Iraola, it's as a manager. You're allowed to make mistakes, whether it's coaching mistakes, tactical or strategic, or whether it's something that you say might not be well received, and you figure that out. At Liverpool, it'll be totally different, as it was for me in joining Newcastle. Every single thing you do on and off the park is speculated on. What's the bigger picture to this? Every comment you make, every word of it is picked apart, and trying to understand that. And well, Iraola knows and recognizes that brings a pressure, both off the park and certainly on it. For as good as things may be off the park, for everything that he may get right off the park, if Liverpool find themselves in mid-table, it's going to count for absolutely nothing. Managing a big club like Liverpool is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job, like few others in the league, and certainly Bournemouth are not one of those.
Talking about what you say being under scrutiny, it's like being on ESPN FC every night, because everybody that gets in touch, they're all the experts, and you guys are just pulled on some football boots back in the day. Sam, I remember a couple of summers ago commentating on Liverpool against Betis in Pittsburgh at Heinz Field and interviewing Arne Slot beforehand. It was his first game in charge, and I said to him, what does success look like? And he gave a decent enough answer, wants to compete, do the best that they can, the usual stuff that you're going to expect to get. He said he wanted to challenge for the title. Ultimately, they did win the title. So what does success look like for Iraola this season, Sam?
Oh, well, yes. We've already established here that they've got a lot of work to do, and that there is quite the chasm between themselves, where they are right now, and where Arsenal finished at the top of the league last season. So they were 25 points off Arsenal at the end of last season. I mean, they were 2 points behind Aston Villa and even finished in the top 4. So success to me, I'm setting a lower bar here. I'm going through the league phase in the Champions League and top 4, just getting back into the Champions League. Part of that may be recognition of how far behind they are of the two that challenged for the title last season. Maybe part of me thinks that simply Liverpool won't get the business done that I think they need to do in order to get there. So I'm setting a lower bar there in terms of a top 4 finish. Just get back into the Champions League and keep churning along. And if that sounds unambitious, I apologize. But unless they sign 5 players, right? Unless they start plugging these holes, right? They need a winger, they need a right back, they need number 6, in my opinion. They probably need to look at another forward kind of player, and they might even have to have another conversation at centre back, given the departure of Ibrahima Konate. Like, there's a lot here, you know. I can't just say, wow, that, you know, great managerial appointment, and Victor Munoz is a really promising player. They'll be in the title race. They won't be at this rate, so they've got a lot to do.
Yeah, Sam said maybe 5 players. Beth, do we know any that Liverpool definitely have a concrete interest in right now?
Yeah, I mean, the name that keeps coming up is Bradley Barcola at Paris Saint-Germain. We know that they want a winger. That is sort of a non-negotiable. Obviously, with Hugo Ekitike being injured as well, as Sam alluded to, they might maybe look at doing someone in a forward position as well. But winger, definitely. We know that they really liked Jan Diomande at Leipzig, but unfortunately for them. So do a lot of other clubs, including PSG, and it looks like that is where Diamonde is going to end up at. I think there's so many moving parts this summer with the winger market, and a lot of it hinges around PSG actually, because we know that they want Diamonde. Bradley Barcola, as a result, may move on because there's been no progress on a new contract for him. He obviously is going to lose. Well, he's not a starter there anyway, is he really? I think he lost his starting place last season at times. So I think there were a few dominoes to fall. But that would be, if I had to put my money on who Liverpool will sign in a forward area, it would probably be Barcola. But again, even that, he plays predominantly off the left, and we know that they need somebody on the right. And maybe there could be an element of flexibility with him and Rio Engamoa sort of crisscrossing every so often and taking it in turns to be a little bit more fluid and go on the left and the right. But it's so difficult because this is going to be the first season in nearly a decade without Mo Salah, and as much as he had a really difficult season last season. For 9 years, he was a guarantee of goals, and they don't have that anymore. So that's going to be a real adjustment. And I do think a lot as well hinges on Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz. If they are able to be the players that Liverpool thought they had signed last summer, then you can make a case that Liverpool are in the title race. They arguably have, maybe the third best striker in world football, and the best number 10 in world football. So if they can stay fit and be firing, then they've got real genuine games changers, match winners there. But obviously we saw last season that didn't happen so often. So yeah, I think Barcola is the standout name so far, but I would agree with the guys. I think they need 4 or 5 if they want to be anywhere near the title conversation next season.
Can I ask Beth, what does the potential Barcola signing mean for Florian Wirtz? We saw Barcola operate off the left, certainly for France, and more times than not for PSG, which I still think of the left is Florian Wirtz's best position. But what does that mean for Wirtz if Barcola is the primary target this summer?
Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see where the manager sees Florian Wirtz. We might get an idea of that next week because Wirtz isn't out here at the moment, but he's coming out for the second week. He's one of the players who's joining up, as is Alexander Isak. So we might get a little look in a couple of games in pre-season where he likes him best. I think it is difficult because it does sort of feel like there are a couple of players, there's certain areas of the pitch where they're really light, and then there's other areas where there are a couple of players vying for the same position, and that left wing is probably quite stacked at the moment because, as you say, Wirtz can play there. Cody Gakpo, that is his position. Engamoa will probably say that was his favourite position, and there's a chance that they have Barcola. So it's hard almost to see where they're all going to play. For the money that they spent on Wirtz, he's got to be starting most weeks. So it will be interesting. I quite like him centrally, but then obviously you're compromising a little bit in terms of your security defensively, because he's a little bit more lightweight. So it will be interesting. Obviously, there's a battle between him and Dominic Szoboszlai, I suppose, to play number 10 a little bit. So yeah, I don't 100% know really still where Wirtz's best position is and where Iraola will see that.
Szoboszlai and Wirtz here is an interesting one for the number 10. I think there's some flexibility here for Iraola, which I think he'll really like. And this is just me doing deep pre-season theorizing, guys, nothing more than that, so bear with me. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to set up different game plans with different number 10s? So if you're Iraola and you're welcoming a newly promoted club to Anfield, and you know that you're going to get 65% of the ball, and it's really about breaking down that deep block, wouldn't you want Florian Wirtz just in that zone, just outside the box, central, pulling the strings and picking the passes? And then the following week, you've got a massive game against Arsenal, and it's hell for leather, it's physical, it's fast, and you want to press and you want to create turnovers. You want Dominic Szoboszlai leading your press from the most influential place on the pitch you can be as a presser, which is that support striker. And you know what? Andoni Iraola has a lot to play with there. He has some really talented options and different options for different types of games, which he should be very happy with. And I'd be very interested to see what he does there.
Shaq, who'll have a bigger impact over the next 12 months, either Wirtz or Szoboszlai, and Liverpool's number 10, or Andy Burnham as the Everton guy at number 10? Yeah, I mean, we're not going to mix politics and sport, but I was hoping to put that in before Sam came up with that, and then we put the graphic in. It'll either get groans or cheers, but I think I know which one that's going to be. Give me a player to shine under Iraola. Let's have one from each of you. Shaq, you can start.
Okay, well then I'll take the most obvious in Dominic Szoboszlai, who I thought was absolutely outstanding all of last season. You could stick a pair of gloves on him and he'd probably give you an 8.5 out of 10. I expect that to continue, especially in under Iraola's style of football. You can play Szoboszlai anywhere, and as far as I'm concerned, I think he absolutely shines.
Okay, Beth, you could be next.
I'm going to go for Milos Kerkez.
I was going to pick him. Okay.
Who hopefully a couple of us are going to have a little chat with him later on today. But I actually think of all of Liverpool's signings last summer, he probably had the most successful season, as much as he maybe struggled for the first month or so. I think he really grew into that role on the left. He's obviously still very young. I think he's only 20, 21, maybe just turned 22. And it was obviously under Iraola, wasn't it, that he sort of made the name for himself, and he got in the PFA Team of the Year, and he was this real sort of lung bursting sort of dynamic fullback, and we didn't always see him so much in advanced positions last season. So hopefully Iraola coming in will allow him to get that real attacking threat back.
And Sam?
Yeah, I'll take £125 million striker Alexander Isak, please. Look, I think we've all probably forgotten how good he can be, understandably. We've not seen him play very well for a very long time. Nice hints at the World Cup, a little reminder of how good he can be as an all-round forward, not just a finisher. And really what I want to tap into here is the fact that this Liverpool team is going to have to change the way it scores goals. Beth points out that 8-9 years of Mohamed Salah scoring 30-40 goals a season has been an absolute guarantee. That's gone. This right-wing market, if you're looking for like a bona fide goal scorer, if you're looking for a 30-goal right-winger right now, I wish you the very best of luck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it exists unless you want to spend 100 million euros and beat PSG in contract terms to Yan Diomande, and even that's not guaranteed, right? So this team has to change the way it scores goals, and the only way it can be effective in doing so is by shouldering the load up front, and it's Isak to come to the rescue, not the new right winger. That's where this team scores goals.
It's funny because I remember interviewing James Pallotta for ESPN FC before COVID up in Boston, Shaq, and he said when they did the deal, and he was the Roma owner at the time, when they did the deal with Liverpool and he went for lunch with Tom Werner, he thought that Liverpool had so overpaid for Mohamed Salah that Pallotta offered to not only buy him lunch, but a bottle of any finest wine that he wanted to choose as well. And now we are where we are now. Let's end this by giving a prediction for the season ahead. I was going to say if you put a little cut in Beth's skin, she'd bleed red, but that's probably the case for all of us.
I hope she does.
So do I. Are you going to let the heart rule the head, or vice versa? What are we going with for Liverpool's finishing position next season?
Yeah, I think thinking with my head here, I'm going to go fourth. I think Arsenal and Manchester City, as we say, are way ahead, and I also think Chelsea could be a bit of a problem next season, purely just because they don't have European football. I think Xabi Alonso, obviously we don't know how he's going to do in the Premier League, but we've seen him be an accomplished coach before. They've obviously made a couple of big money signings already, certainly with Morgan Rogers. So I think them not having those midweek commitments, which is something that Andoni Iraola is going to have to get used to. He's not used to that at Bournemouth. So I think they might pick Liverpool to in the race for top four, but I think Liverpool will get in the top four.
Jack,
I'm going to agree with Beth here. I think fourth. I think that's an improvement on last season, certainly in terms of points and one position. But I just don't see them. I just don't see them any higher than that. Whether it's Chelsea or Manchester United, which I'm a little bit not sure about myself, but I just don't feel they get top three, which, as I mentioned earlier, I think is their target.
And you do know, being the most popular member of the ESPN FC crew, like you have done ever since I've known you, you can change every week your prediction, and you'll eventually get it right, because you do. So.
Between now and the start of the season, I'll pick every position between 1 and 20, and that way I guarantee I get it right at some point.
We'll clip it off. 2/4. What about Sam? What you got for Liverpool's finishing position this coming season?
Yeah, it's an evil question, isn't it? Because there's 5 weeks left in the window, and that's 5 weeks left, not just for Liverpool, but for everybody else in this conversation too. So baking in expectation for the window, or a lack of faith in some cases, I'm going to go with 5th. I'm going to say Man United are in a better spot and are more likely to fix those holes, and then one of the teams without European football surges in above as well. Like I've said all along, I need to see 4 or 5 signings here before I can really get on board with this. I think it could be a promising season in terms of resetting the structure and the spine of the team, but whether or not they can actually get those results, right now it looks tough for me.
I'm going to go third. And it's funny, the 3 players that were named by Beth, by Sam, and by Shaka were the 3 that I was considering to mention about the most important player. Now, they all have to be good. Isak has to have the Newcastle season, not the Liverpool of last season. Kerkesh has to have the Bournemouth season, not the season of last season. And Frimpong has to have the Bundesliga season. But if they all stay fit, then who knows if it's doable. Just before we go, I'm going to ask producer Sam to put up the graphic of Iraola's Liverpool 11 once more for one final time. And Sam, how many of those will start against Newcastle? Actually, not predicted, actually.
11, obviously. No, I don't know. Let's see. I would really hope there's a new right winger in by that point. So there's one change. And Xhaka could be Gomez. Yeah, 2. I'm going to go minimum 9. I've got this down to, I've got 9 right at least.
Okay, we'll keep in touch with all things Liverpool in the United States. We've got full coverage on TV, on ESPN, and on ESPN.com with Beth. And we'll be doing ESPN FC live right here over the next couple of weeks before the new season starts, and ESPN FC on your television as well. Thanks to Beth, thanks to Sam, and thanks to Shaka. I'm Mark Donaldson. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now.